the first item was welcoming you all and giving you a background about today's program, which was done by Brother Abdullah Mitchell. There will be another. The next item will be by Brother Irfan Risby. He is a SBA advisor, and he will be giving a talk on types of resources available for small businesses from SBA. And then Faizan Ahmed, who is a CPA and an attorney at law, he will be talking to you about SBA disaster loan details, how to apply, application requirements, etc. And then Tabriz Ahmed, who is an accountant, and he's also part of the board members of Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce, will talk to you about payroll tax credits offered by IRS. And then Adnan Shaukat, who is a member of our chamber, and he will talk about the business insurance interruptions and loss of income. And followed by that, we will have a Q&A session, and then we'll have closing remarks. But just want to let you know, as I was saying in the beginning before we started, we are expecting Congressman Sean Casten to join our call. Because of his busy schedule, he couldn't commit a time, but just now, a few minutes back, we got a confirmation from his office that he is expected to join somewhere around 11:30 because of his busy schedule. And as he's having several meetings with the state leaders and governor and other leaders, he is having a very busy day today. So when he comes, we may interrupt our meeting and give him a few minutes to talk, and then let him go. And then we will continue with the program. And that may make our meeting a little bit more longer than we expected. I hope everybody will be okay with that. So please bear with us. We are at this point, we are expecting an hour and a half long meeting, but it may go a little bit more beyond that because of that change in schedule. With that, I will introduce Brother Irfan Rizvi. And Brother Irfan will talk about the resources available for small businesses from SBA. And a quick intro about Brother Rizwan is written over here. He has over 30 years of experience in business and management consultancy and finance and accounting. He has been working as in outsourcing services, virtual CFO services, business planning and budgets, identifying opportunities for growth, and subsequently taking a leadership role in exploring new ideas, developing a long-term strategic forecast, cash flow, and fiscal management services. With that, let me hand it over to Brother Irfan Rizvi.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning to the listeners. And it's my pleasure that I have been given this opportunity to speak about the point which are burning issues nowadays in the country. Well, I am basically the mentor for SCORE, and the purpose of SCORE is to provide mentoring services, provide high quality business and economic development assistance to existing small business and pre-ventures entrepreneur who want to enter into the business. Basically, I already mentored more than 30 clients who are having problems in SBAs, including working capital problems, including business issues, including a startup of business, including business planning, and so many other things. If you go to the SCORE, you can find a lot of things over there. And here, my target, as for the last 3 days, I'm going through with the process of learning and training from SBA and SCORE. That is now here, the premium source of partner of SBA for 50 years. You can see that. SCORE mentors provide high quality problem solving assistance to help small business access capital, improve business planning, strategy, operation, financial management, personal administration, marketing, sales, and other areas required for a small business growth and expansion and management improvement. I'm already involved, and as I mentioned, that I did already 30 business owners, and 6 are in my with me now. And now I'm started receiving a lot of clients, especially referring to this crisis, that how can we bail them out from this crisis and help them out. Here, the slide shows that we know we have seen so many websites, so many um, informations there and everywhere in the country. But I am particularly going to refer those areas which are still not been uh, considered by our um, small business owner who are having these problems nowadays. So here are some business grants and loans offered by SCORE partners, which are quite flexible and commutable, like NAV. This is also recommended by Illinois government. This is small business grant contest and is give grant to small business and tell a story of prevention and opportunity to the face of past on ongoing challenges. And the Facebook has already granted $100 million for small businesses for this crisis only. And there is another action, is a largest network, non-profit lending network in the United States. They are providing a lot of support in this crisis to the small business owners. And SB Express Bridge loan, uh, which is providing in a very short period of time just to cover up your crisis, and you can return this money later on when you have the loan from AIDL and other resources which are available in the market. So lender match is another very much attractive for, I would recommend to my clients. I always say my clients, to the small business owners who are suffering, they should go to Lender Match. It's a free online referral tool that connects small businesses with participating SB approval lenders. And there are over 800 lenders participants all over the country. And they provide a quite flexible way. So I can discuss with when the question will come on that how this lender match work and describe. You have to describe your needs, get match, and they just match you within 2 days because they will throw your documents to 800 lenders all over the country, and within 2 days you will get the match, and then it's up to you to negotiate with the lenders and decide which one you want to take that, which is quite attractive one. And for that, what is very much important to get yourself prepared now. As I always telling to my clients, whosoever calling me, that you must prepare yourself right now. Whatever things are coming up, whatever the new additions are coming up, everything needs your business plan. What amount you need for your funding, your credit history, of course, and financial projection, collateral, and industrial experience. These are mandatory for each lenders, including SBA. Now, since they added banks and lenders, so they will be looking all this information. So I would request to all my small business owners that you must start immediately getting this job done, so that if you have a time, because they are going to take 2 3 days only, and then things will be there on. And in some cases there are first comes first basis. In some cases you have to apply as much as earlier, but earlier doesn't mean that you should submit your document which is incomplete. Please remember that part. Your documents must be more than enough. If it is not required, still you should submit your document, for example, the business plan, and there is and financial underwriter. This is maybe this is a new terminology for most of the people, but this is very much important to understand. When you submit your document, you should submit a 1 or 2 pages, your understanding that how your how the lender risks are minimal if they give the loan to the borrower, because each lender do have their underwriters. They review their risk of lending. So you can prepare such reports which indicates how can your lending money will have less risk if I borrow from you as a borrower. So for that, you need professionals who can help you out, and I can only advise you, I can guide you. Like financial underwriter is a process that banks and other financial institutions use to assess that credible creditworthiness or risk of potential borrowers. There are two important things we have to understand here. The creditworthiness is just a score. Normally, we do say that a score is good, then you will get that. That's true. But if your score is not good, it doesn't mean that you are not going to get that loan. If you can prove your risk of potential, the borrower risk of potential are minimal through your documentation, through your planning, and through your financial underwriters, you have the ample opportunity to get your loan. So please make sure that your documents are to be ready as much as earlier with a comprehensive look. What I can do over here as a mentor of SBA and SCORE, that I can go with the documents. Once it's ready, I can go through and I can give my comments that, okay, is it perfect? You can send it to the lenders, as much as lenders you can send, including banks and credit unions and lenders, or you can send to selective company. Please, can you change your slide? Yeah, okay. So I think my time is done. 10 minutes I have taken, which seems to be very less. So, okay, right, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Irfan. Next is actually by Faizan. Faizan will be talking about SBA disaster loan details, how to apply, and the application requirements. So Faizan, please take it from here. Thank you.
Oh, yes, I think you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Great. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on this webinar about the disaster loan. So I wanted to present about how details about the economic injury disaster loan that's available through the SBA right now. And there's a lot of confusion because they're having a lot of changes in the past month. And of course, more changes even until a day or so ago. So we'll dive into this. There will be, I'm sure, some more changes coming in next week as the SBA decides to implement the CARES Act. And hopefully maybe we can do something else for that once we get more information. So if you can go ahead. All right, so some basic details about the disaster loan. You are looking at maximum of $2 million that you can be eligible for. The interest rates are 3.75% for small businesses and 2.75% for nonprofit organizations. The maximum term is 30 years. There is no minimum term as of yet. I did ask that with the SBA a couple days ago, so they do not have a minimum term right now. The first payment is deferred up to 1 year. Now, the eligibility is based on size. So you must be a small business. It depends on the type of business and your financial resources. We can go to the next slide, please. Yes, so what businesses are eligible to apply? Of course, the small businesses, you have agricultural cooperatives, agriculture business, and most nonprofit organizations. Businesses such as gambling and stuff like that, they are not eligible to apply for this loan. How can you use the loan funds? You have fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, other bills that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. Another thing, religious organizations, charitable organizations are also not eligible to apply for this loan. Basically, the loan funds, it's called a working capital loan, so you can use those funds to keep the business running. That is basically what the funds are for. Next slide, please. Okay, so just some basic definition of what the size is. So they have a federal guideline of NAICS that you can check online. It describes what a small business size is according to different industries, because the size standards are different for every industry. So as you can see, for retail, it's up to $7 million. Manufacturing is based on employees, so it's 500 employees. Wholesale is 100 employees. So depending on your industry, you can go to NAICS and check that. So the criteria for loan approval. So you have, so of course they do check credit history. You have to have credit history that's acceptable to the SBA. Now, there is no minimum credit score according to the SBA. So a lot of times what is happening right now is people were applying, and based on whatever the current guidelines were previously, people were getting automatically declined within minutes of applying. So they have changed their system at this point. Now you just need to upload documents, and there's no computer system. The person will actually go ahead and look at it, because even if your credit is less, they do look at other factors in terms of earnings of the business, collateral, and other stuff like that. So repayment, we have SBA must determine applicant business has the ability to repay the loan. So it's the same thing. It's about how much, the earnings of the business, how quickly maybe you'll get back on your feet and stuff like that. So the applicant must be physically located in declared county and have suffered working capital losses due to the disaster. So you have to have, so right now, I mean, the whole country is declared, so that's not really an issue. The loss needs to be due to the disaster of the coronavirus. So that is, just to be clear, if you had an issue before that already or something like that, you cannot, apply for that this loan based on anything other than the coronavirus. Okay, so collateral requirements. Up to recently, so it was up to $24,000. There was no collateral. Anything over did require collateral. With the CARES Act that just implemented Friday, Saturday, they might have increased that up to 200,000. Is something that we'll probably we'll know more by Monday or Tuesday. But a lack of collateral will not be a reason for decline. So go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the disaster loans, they come directly from the U.S. Treasury. So one thing that I think most people maybe know now is that this is directly from the SBA. You apply directly to the SBA, separate from the usual SBA loans, which you go to a bank to apply for. So there's no cost to apply, and there's also no obligation to take the loan if you are approved. Maybe if everything is good, by the time the loan is approved, you don't have to take it. And you can also actually ask for a lower amount if you don't want as much. So we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so basic filing requirements. So this is just a list of everything that is there that you have to fill out before you send in your application. So you have your regular business loan application. There's a separate one for sole proprietors, which is the 5C. You just need to complete all copies, including all schedules, include the most recent tax return, and an explanation if the tax return is not available. Then you have the economic injury disaster loan supporting information. This is a form that was just added a couple of days back. If you applied before that, I might recommend you go back and take a look at this. It provides immediate working capital to eligible applications. The business must have been operating for at least 1 year prior to the disaster. So that is one of the requirements. If you look at stuff online, that is not very clear. But if your business is operating you need to show that you had sales before this that are going to be hurt. If your business is operating for less than 1 year, you will have a harder chance of getting approved. So that is just out there. We can go to the next slide, please. So, okay, so then we have the fee disclosure form and compensation agreement. So this is if you're having somebody help you fill the forms out and you're paying them. You just need to fill this out if they will fill this out if they're charging over $2,500, but anything under $2,500 is not required to be disclosed. Then you need personal financial statements, complete, signed and dated by the applicant, if a sole proprietor, and then each principal owning 20% or more of the business, and each general partner or managing partner. Then we have the request for transcript of tax returns. So you just need to sign this so that the SBA can pull your tax returns directly from the IRS. Then we have your schedule of liabilities, listing all fixed debts. So you need to copy, including all schedules of the tax return and everything. So it's the same thing, 20% or more. So all your liabilities need to be included there. And then you have the additional filing requirements, provide monthly sales figures. You may estimate if actual figures are not available beginning 3 years prior to the disaster. So what this is basically you need to show what your monthly sales figures are currently and previously, and going even back 3 years. So so that way you can show that, last March, last February, my sales were this, and this March and this February, my sales went down by 50%, 60%, whatever the case may be, and how these sales are continuing to go down for the rest of the year, how it's going to impact my rest of the year because of this coronavirus pandemic. So this is a very important form. It is something that is not required with the initial application. They might ask you this afterwards, but my recommendation is to fill this out with the original application. Do not wait for them to ask this of you. Next, you have the profit and loss statement year to date and a previous year profit and loss statement and balance sheet. So the profit and loss statements, they are not requiring last year profit and loss statements. If you have the tax return done, I would say that you still send it in with a balance sheet and your current to date profit and loss statement. Same thing, the profit and loss statement is going to be very important. You need to show, especially the year to date one, you need to show how this coronavirus pandemic is affecting you, and even projected profit and loss statement for this whole year, showing how you're going to be making any losses or anything like that because of this. So I would recommend strongly working with some professional who can structure that form, those numbers, so that you have a higher chance of getting approval. We can go to the next slide, please. So how to apply? Now, there's just the standard form. The standard way to apply is you can just go to the website, the link I have right here, and you can, so what they did before, you could actually fill in everything online by just creating an account. They have stopped that because that was one of the reasons why people were getting declined automatically, because they would do a credit check and just decline people. So what they've done now is you go online, you download all the forms, they're fillable PDFs, you fill everything in, and then you go back and then you upload those forms into their Dropbox portal. So that is basically how they are doing it right now. You also have the ability of mailing in the forms to their address. Until a couple of days back, I was recommending everybody just to mail in the forms, but with their current change, I think sending it, uploading to the Dropbox is okay. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so just tips before you submit. Recheck the filing requirements, please, because this is an ongoing process. Things are changing nearly every single day. So if you're not working with a professional who's keeping up to date, you need to be on top of this. You don't want to be sending something in and missing something and getting declined and then waiting 6 months to reapply. The biggest reason for delays is due to missing information. Of course, now if you need more funds, the applicants can submit supporting documents and request for an increase. Now, if less funds are needed, you can also request a reduction. Now, if your loan is denied, the applicant will be given up to 6 months in which to provide new information and submit a written request for reconsideration. All right, next slide, please. All right, so yeah, so that's everything for me. I think this gives you a good overview of the economic injury disaster loan, what to look for when applying, what you need to concentrate on when filling out that application. One of the things that was just approved is a $10,000 advance on this EIDL loan that they give you within 3 days of applying. But it is very important for you to know that right now it has not been implemented because the law was just signed a couple days back. So if you already applied or if you're going to apply tomorrow, you will have to reapply for the advance. So if you want to do that, it's up to you, or you need to wait until the SBA implements the form for the advance and then just apply once. You can also apply for the advance at the same time as the loan. So just to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Faizan. Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you all? I assume that you all can hear me, right?
Yes.
We have Congressman Sean Casten joining us right now. He just called me and he's just dialing in. Congressman, are you on the call? Just give one couple seconds. Congressman.
Shafiq, if he is, he may be muted because all participants were muted. Maybe just have him call your cell phone and then you can three-way him into this meeting.
I'm sorry, what was it, the breeze by?
I believe we have all the participants on mute, so we may have to unmute him if he's on, or just have him call your cell phone and you can conference him in through your cell phone.
I'm actually dialing in from my my computer, but there's a good point. Brother Abdullah, can you hear me? Brother Abdullah,
yes, I can hear you. I'm looking, but there's only telephone numbers. I can't. We need.
Congressman Casten is calling from phone number 202-875-9747.
All right, give me a moment to look for that number.
Sure. I'm also looking for that.
Assalamu alaikum. On the bottom of the screen, you can unmute yourself. So I don't know if that helps.
Shafiq.
Brother Shafiq,
I don't see
it doesn't
that
see
telephone number.
Yeah, Brother Shafiq, it doesn't seem like he's online.
Yeah, just give one more second, like he just said, like he's down. Congressman Casten? I think like we are having difficulty confirming his number. So I'm not sure whether Congressman Casten is already on the line because we have muted. Can we unmute everyone for 1 second to see if Congressman is on the line and then mute back? Is it possible or?
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna mute everybody.
Okay.
Unmute everybody.
Yeah. Congressman Casten, are you on the call?
I wanted to make a recommendation if everyone, and if I would recommend everyone muting themselves because there's going to be a lot of overlap.
And everybody else mute. Everybody else should mute.
Congressman Casten on the call. Yeah, I think we lost him maybe. Please go ahead then. Please go ahead with the next speaker. The next speaker is Fabrice Ahmed. Fabrice is currently the owner of.
You need to.
Shafiq, you have to make sure everyone is muted again.
They are.
Yeah, everyone is muted, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yes,
think everyone.
I'm looking for Therese. Let me get his phone. Just a moment.
I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Okay, great.
Tabriz is
Good.
unmuted.
Okay.
Congressman Caston is dialing in shortly, but as he dials in, his number is. He's asking to anybody calling any of the speakers calling in using their phone number from their
Yes.
phone. Okay.
There's
Can
people
you do a
using
favor?
phone.
Can you dial in this number 202 875 9747.
Now, what do you want, Shafiq? You
Just
want?
dial in, and that is Congressman Caston's number, and he's asking to call in because he's having challenge in connecting to our Zoom. So just conference him in from your phone if it is okay.
All right. All right. Just a moment.
Okay.
Why don't you? Can we go forward?
Yeah, we are moving forward as Congressman comes in, just patch him in, and we are the next item in the agenda is payroll tax credit offered by IRS, and Brother Tabriz Ahmed is going to talk about that. So, Brother Tabriz.
Thank you, Brother Shafiq. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and greetings to our non-Muslims, friends, and partners that have joined us. Appreciate everyone joining us. What I will be focusing on is two particular tax credits that have been passed in the past week by the Senate, as well as now it's been signed on Friday by the President. The first one is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, also known as the FFCRA. In this particular webinar, we're going to go ahead and refer to this particular act as a Families First Act. And then there's a second act that I'll also be talking about, which is a CARES Act that was signed in on Friday, the Coronavirus Aid and Relief and Economic Security Act. So the first one is a Families First Act. The Families First Act, there are three things that I wanted to go ahead and touch base with everyone on this, because this is directly related to the employers. So we're going to go ahead and talk about, if you own a small business, are you impacted by this particular act, and do you have to follow it? The act talks about two particular leaves that you have to go ahead and pay to your employees: the emergency paid sick leave and the emergency FMLA. If we go to the next slide, please. Again, just a disclaimer, we're not giving out legal or tax advice because the laws have been changing almost on a daily basis. It may not be the final version that we're presenting here today. Please consult with your accountant and attorneys. So if you're an employer, do you have to follow this particular rule that was put into place about a week ago? Generally, if you are a small business, which means that if you have under 500 employees, which I believe most of us do have, then yes, you are required to follow this Families First Act. Now, there are some exemptions available for healthcare providers or emergency responders or businesses less than 50 employees. Just to note, if you have less than 50 employees, which majority of us may do, you have to go ahead and prove that by following this act, it would put a jeopardy onto your business to go ahead and keep it sustainable. And they haven't given us much more requirements beyond that, other than you have to go ahead and prove that it would jeopardize your business. Next slide, please. So basically, what is the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act that was approved about a week ago? So let's say you own ABC Company. ABC Company pretty much means all employees are entitled to this act or this pay, regardless of how long they've worked for you. So if they have been an employee for you for 1 week or 1 year, they most probably may be getting paid because of this act. Now, you have to pay out to people that are unable to work because of this particular virus, or they're unable to work at home. If they're able to work at home, then they're going to get their regular pay. But if they're not able to work at home, then you have to pay them. This is going to be effective as of April 1st for any employees that take leave from April 1st to December 31st for the rest of the year. So there are two types of people. People are going to take off of work if they, actually, if we can go back to the next previous slide, please. Thank you. So there are two types of people. People that are taking time off. Next, previous slide, Shafiq Bhai. Thank you. So in the middle column right here, people that are going to be taking time off because they've been individually impacted by the virus. They've been contracted with the virus, or a doctor has told them to go ahead and stay at home. That means they're going to get their regular pay for the first 2 weeks that they are unable to work, up to $500, $511 a day. You have to pay them. Most employees most probably are going to be taking time off because their kids are off from school because the schools are closed, or they're working from home, meaning the kids are doing telework and they have to stay home to take care of their children. In that instance, then you as an employer are required to go ahead and pay 2/3 of their regular pay, up to $200 per employee per day for 10 days, up to a maximum of $2,000. Again, this rule applies to all full-time and part-time employees. Shafiq Bhai, can you go back for me? Keep going back. Page 31, please. 30, sorry. One more back. Thank you. So again, just to kind of summarize on this Leave Act, if you have any employees that have been contracted with the virus, now there's been talk about, well, because we have a stay-at-home order, does that qualify our employees to be paid at the full rate? No. Unfortunately, the Department of Labor has not given us guidance or has not clarified that the stay-at-home order requires employers to go ahead and pay their employees at the full rate or the $500 rate. The stay-at-home order is at the reduced rate of 2/3 pay or $200. If your employees are able to work from home, then this doesn't impact you because you're going to pay them their regular salary. The next slide, please. So the emergency FMLA. Basically, after the 2 weeks, the government has said if they're still unable to work, then they have another 10 weeks of paid time off. They get 10 weeks of paid time off if they're staying at home to take care of a child because the schools are closed, or they're unable to work because of the stay-at-home order has continued. They still get their 2/3 salary capped at $200 a day, maximum of $10,000 for the entire year per employee, right? If you have part-time workers, then there's a little bit more complicated formula, but basically you have to go ahead and take a look at how much they've worked over a 2-year period or 2-week period on an average basis, and that's how you go ahead and pay them. Next slide, please. So if you pay your employees, the government will reimburse you 100%. Again, the government will reimburse whatever you pay your employees for both the Sick Leave Act and the Family Leave Act. You will be reimbursed 100%, right? Assuming you're following within the guidelines of the act and you're paying the $200 or the $500 per day. If you're paying health insurance premiums and you continue to pay health insurance premiums for your employees, the government will reimburse you as an employer. All the Social Security and Medicare tax that you would normally pay for your employees, because of this particular act, that is going to be waived to you as an employee. Also, there is a notice that you as employers should be posting into all of your job sites, which the Department of Labor put out yesterday. There's a link in our presentation. You can click on it and download the poster that the Department of Labor has put out. Again, both of these credits are effective for all time off that any employee requests from next week, April 1st, all the way through the end of the year. So we're going to go through a quick example of the credit. So let's say, again, We have Ali, who works for ABC Company, and he is unfortunately at home taking care of his kids because he is unable to work for that reason, right? So he makes $39,000 a year, which equals $1,500 for every 2 weeks gross pay. Because he's at home and unable to work because of taking care of a child, because the schools are closed, he's entitled to 2/3 of his salary. So 2/3 of his salary at $1,500 is $990, right? So for the first 2 weeks of April, he gets $990. At the bottom, we've even given you a quick example of his paycheck. So at $990, he would get a net paycheck of $800.05. Normally, you as an employer would have to go ahead and deposit the Social Security, Medicare, all those taxes. But instead, you do not have to deposit any of those taxes, and the government will go ahead and send you a check in the mail. They're saying within 3 days, once you go ahead and apply, $844, which basically is the $800 that you paid to Ali as a net paycheck, and the $44 that you have to pay for unemployment and the Illinois withholding to the state of Illinois. So basically everything else, after everything's said and done, this particular pay period, because you paid Ali, it would only cost you $6 in Illinois unemployment taxes. Everything else would be reimbursed to you 100% by the government. The next act. I know I'm going fast. We're on a limited time, but we'll take questions at the end. The next act is the CARES Act, the Corona Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act that was signed into law by President Trump on Friday. Again, we're not giving out legal or tax advice. Go ahead and check with your accountant or attorney. So here, it was a large act that was passed. We're going to go through a bunch of various different things within the CARES Act. The biggest one is the stimulus money that has been approved for all U.S. residents. Small business loans that Faizan touched based on, we'll touch base on it a little bit as well. The loan forgiveness program. There's the emergency disaster loans and grant that Faizan talked about. Retirement, you can pull money out of your retirement without any penalties, additional payroll tax credits, unemployment benefits, and some changes to net operating losses. So the stimulus payment, what is the rebate that the government has talked about that you guys have all read?
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Tabriz bhai, we want to take a short break. We have Congressman Sean Casten and COGC Chair Irshad is here as well. So Irshad, do you want to introduce Congressman Casten real quick?
Sure. He's on the line. I'll merge you in.
Congressman Casten, can you hear us? Congressman Casten? Hello, Congressman Casten, can you hear us?
On the line.
Can you hear us? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I cannot hear.
Yeah, the line is not merging. I can hear him. Maybe I can connect him on my personal line and see if I can have it on the speakerphone. I think that's the only way I can do it. Hold on one second.
Okay, real quick.
Why don't you continue, and then I'll reconnect with Congressman and connect back.
Okay. Tabriz bhai, sorry, please go ahead.
Not a problem. So the stimulus or the rebate payment that has been all over the news for the past week or two, there's nothing that you or anyone else need to do. You will automatically get a check or a direct deposit if you qualify. Basically, the government's giving out $1,200 per individual if you're single. If you're married, you get $2,400. And if you have any children under the age of 17, you'll get $500 in addition per child under the age of 17. How do you get it? Again, you don't do anything. The government will look at your 2018 tax return. unless your 2019 tax returns have already been filed. If they have not filed your 2019 because you're on an extension or because now the deadline's July 15th, the government will look at your 2018 tax return. Basically, if you made anywhere between, if you're a single individual, you made anything before 75,000 to 99,000 as your adjusted gross income, not your gross salary, adjusted gross income on your tax return, you'll automatically get a check. If you're married, basically it's between $150,000 to $198,000, you'll go ahead and automatically get a check. Those numbers slightly get increased based on the number of children you have, but that's a rough formula that you have to know. Again, if you have a parent or an elderly person, or you yourself do not have any taxable income and you are only receiving Social Security benefits, you do not need to do anything. The government is already aware of you and they will automatically send you a check in the mail. Again, if you make too much money in 2019 and your income drops significantly in 2020, when you do your 2020 tax return, your accountant will automatically adjust that particular tax credit, and you may be entitled to a credit in 2020 if you did not get one in 2019 because your income was too high. Brother Ashad, do you want me to continue? Or?
Yeah, hold on. Congressman, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's much
Can everybody hear, Sean?
It is pretty good. Thank you, Congressman Caston, for joining the call. This is me, Shafiq, and we are so glad to have you here. And thank you for all the work which you are doing on behalf of the small businesses to support us. So we can hear you. Please continue.
Okay. Well, as I was saying to Syra at the start of this call, I think we have all been struggling this week with lots of conference call systems that are overloaded. So I apologize for the tough sound on this one, but I assure you we've had the same calls without leadership. I thought I'd just give a quick update on what is happening federally and what is still to come federally. We have passed 3 bills in the Congress. The first 2 of those are now being implemented by the president. The third by the executive branch. The third is now just getting started. The first one was an $8.3 billion with a B dollar stimulus bill, which was really focused on the public health issues. That was expanding money to public health agencies so that they had resources to treat, expanding money to the directions of the development of vaccines and treatments. And in addition, in addition to that $8.3 billion, there was a $7 billion with a B dollar expansion in the Small Business Association Authority for these disaster, EIDL, economic disaster loans. That program is now fully being implemented. We have had 2 conference calls, and I'm sure we'll do more with the Illinois Small Business Authorities who are responsible for rolling those out. For those who have not been able to participate, if you go to our website, congress.gov, look up Sean Caston, you can find links to those presentations, lots of really helpful links, how to apply, who is eligible. That program is all in place. The second bill that we passed out of the House, which was about a $100 billion bill with a B, was called the Families First Act. That bill was designed really to start to address the economic uncertainties imposed on those people who have been directly affected by the virus. So that included things like increase in food assistance for SNAP payments, increased Medicaid payments to states so that states have more resources, direct reimbursement of companies that are providing up to 2 weeks of additional sick time, because if you need to self-quarantine for 14 days and can't go to work, you should be reimbursed. If you are more than 500 employees in your company, that reimbursement comes through a tax credit at the end of the year. If you have fewer than 500 employees, that reimbursement can be a direct payment from the federal government. Again, those are all out there, and you can find details on our website or elsewhere how to apply for those. There was also in that $100 billion Families First bill a an additional reimbursement from the federal government for 2/3 of your salary to the extent that you need an additional 2 weeks beyond the first 2 weeks. So this would be people who have tested positive, need to recover, or are taking some time in treatment. So basically an expansion of all the coverage. There were a lot of other things in that bill as well, but those were the big muscle movements. The third bill, which we passed this week, was the CARES Act, CARES. This was the bill that that started in the Senate, and we flew back to Washington 2 days ago to pass. That bill is now signed by the president, but some of the implementation is still not yet in place. That had another $390 billion of expansion and assistance to the Small Business Agency. We had provisions there that allow, in certain circumstances, for small business loans to be forgiven. You have to demonstrate economic hardship, and the portion of the loan that is to be forgiven is that portion that is used to pay salaries and cover rent and the ongoing operations of the bill on a going forward basis. That also included $500 billion of loan packages available to larger companies, but we in the House put some significant cap constraints on that beyond what the Senate had done. Most notably, that there has to be an inspector general supervising to make sure that the president does not use this money to fund his own self-interest, which is obviously a concern. The other provisions that were put on it, and it varies a little bit by industry, but in order to avail yourself of those funds, you have to make commitments not to use the money for stock buybacks, not to use the money for dividend payments, not to reduce your employee headcount. I could go on, but essentially it was trying to protect against some of the abuses taken with the bailout funds that were done in the 2008 crisis and prior to that in 2011. There's a lot more in that bill as well, but I'll leave it at that point. The last thing that I really want to stress to everybody is that in the course of conversations that we had with a whole host of experts in developing this bill, from Ben Bernanke to Janet Yellen to Christina Romer, people who were intimately involved in the 2008 bailout, and the chief economists at the major banks, the clear message that came through from those people in the financial sector is that this will, without question, be the deepest downturn in American economic history since data has been recorded. This is going to be a very hard economic pill to swallow. However, it is also going to be the shortest downturn in our history, provided that we turn the corner on the public health crisis immediately. And that is so important, because this is not at core an economic crisis. It is a public health crisis that is manifest into an economic crisis. And the only way for us to stop the public health crisis is to take these emergency measures that are going to be very disruptive to the economy. The total U.S. payroll expense runs about $1 trillion with a T dollars per week. The total federal budget last year was $5 trillion. If we start looking at 20, 25, 30% unemployment, as some people are projecting, there is no entity with the balance sheet to cover this but the federal government, and it is going to significantly strain the federal government as well. So our ability to get through this, it is critically important that we all practice these social distancing measures, that we take the advice of scientists and public health officials seriously, and that we absolutely not listen to people and not share the advice of people who are trying to ignore science at the expense of short-term politics. Because the number of Americans who are still alive in June is going to be a direct function of what we do today. I hope that's helpful. I don't know if this format allows for questions, but hopefully that overview is useful.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Thank you so much for finding time and joining this call, taking time from your busy schedule. We all know how busy you are these days, and and truly appreciate, and thank you so much for all the hard work. We will be holding more events like this. This was our first webinar as such, and we did not know that we had 100 people limit on our account. So we will make it available for more people to join in the future calls. And if your schedule permits, I will let your office know, and if you could join, that'll be great to give further updates. And thank you so much once again. And our Q&A session is at the very end to get because we have quite a few information to still share with the group. I hope you'll be able to join us in our future meetings.
So what we're going to do regarding the question, there are already a lot of questions on the Q&A chat. Congressman, we will assemble all these questions, and then we will work with your office to answer. And then when future webinars that we conduct, we can address those with the participants.
Terrific. And if folks would like to, as we continue to do teletown halls and other events, if folks want to sort of keep in touch with us, go to our website, sign up to be alerted, and then we can make sure to get all this information out there and put you on our email list as we learn more as well. Thank you all.
And one last thing that just wanted to share from CIGC COVID Task Force, we are putting together some financial sustainability webinars as well. This is geared towards the small businesses, but our organizations are also struggling with the financial. So we are putting together some webinars to address that, and we would love to have you on those as well.
Once again,
thank you,
Congressman. Thank you. And those who are on the call, before we continue with the webinar, the other topics, I just want to remind all of you to go and sign up using that sign up sheet, so that we can get your information and share the details. And the next, as you all know, this is evolving as we speak. And Congressman's office reaches out to us and let us know about programs. And we ourselves are planning to do more programs with COGC Task Force and Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce. So to keep you updated, if you would like to be updated about future events and the progress on the topics which we are discussing, and also if you like to get a copy of this presentation, please go and use that sign up sheet and sign. And I will share that in the chat box as well, like that link to sign up. But please use that to sign up so that we get the contact information to communicate with you. With that, I will hand it over to Brother Tabriz Ahmed to continue with the presentation. Brother Tabriz.
Thank you, Shafiq Bhai. Okay, so I think this particular slide's been up on the screen for some time, so hopefully everyone's kind of read through it. I don't think I have anything else on the rebate. Again, the only thing I'll say again about the rebate is you do not need to do anything. You don't need to call your accountant. You don't need to call. You'll get the money if you qualify automatically, right? If your income's too high in 2018 or 2019 and your income drops in 2020, you'll get this rebate in 2020. We go to the next slide, please. So again, within this CARES Act, the congressman spoke about it. I believe Faizan spoke about it as well, is you can go ahead and also apply for what they're calling a small business loan or a paycheck protection loan. So you can go ahead and apply for this particular loan if you're a small business. Again, the small business definition is under 500 employees. This includes non-for-profits as well as sole proprietors. A lot of people are out there they don't have a particular corporation. They're just a mom and pop shop, or they're just what we call a Schedule C filer. You do qualify for this. If you go ahead and apply, but you do have to apply for this paycheck protection loan before June 30th. That's the key. So what is the paycheck protection loan and how much can you get? It's all based on your salaries for the company. So basically, the way the formula is driven is it's the average monthly salary for one particular year multiplied by 2.5 times, or $10 million, whichever one is less. Payroll is all wages that you pay, tips if you're in the restaurant business, sick or medical leave. And if you have anyone that makes over 100,000, you can only include up to $100,000 of that particular employee's salary. If you have anyone that you paid using the previous Families First Act that I talked about, that you have to deduct that particular wages from your calculation. Basically, it's an interest-based loan. We don't know what the interest rate will be, but all we can tell you is it's less than 4%. And all the fees are waived, and it'll have a payback period of, at the maximum, 10 years. So again, we have an example at the bottom of your screen. So let's say Rob's Car Wash applies for a Paycheck Protection loan next month on May 1st. His business has $1.2 million in payroll costs for the previous year that he's applied for, which makes it an average of $100,000 per month. He's entitled to $100,000, right? So you take the 100,000 times it by 2.5. So he's entitled to $250,000 loan or $10 million, whichever one is less. So again, the maximum he could qualify for is $250,000 loan using this particular formula. The next slide, please. So you could go ahead and have that loan be forgiven. So a portion of the loan, depending on what you use it for, potentially all of it can be forgiven. If you use that loan to pay salaries, mortgage, rent, and certain utility payments within the first 2 months of you getting that loan, right? So you'll have to go ahead and prove it. There's various different things that you have to prove to your lender that you used it for the proper reasons. If you reduce your employees within the 8-week period, then the amount that can be forgiven is also reduced. And then also, if you've paid anyone that's over $100,000, that is also a reduction in the amount that can be forgiven. So again, continuing with our previous example at the bottom of your screen, Rob's Car Wash got a $250,000 loan. In the first 8 weeks, he pays out $200,000 in payroll, mortgage interest, and utility bills. He's eligible to have $200,000 of the $250,000 be forgiven. This forgiveness of $200,000 is not taxable income. So it's pretty much free income to your business, right? Not only that, the $50,000 that he does owe on the loan, those payments can be deferred up to 6 months. Next slide, please. Right? As part of that same loan, you can go ahead, as long as the loan is under $200,000, you do not need to personally guarantee it under the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Section 7B2, which Faizan spoke about, right? Not only that, again, my previous speaker, Faizan, who's an attorney and CPA, he mentioned this as well, is that this particular grant can give out $10,000 within 3 days of you applying for the loan to go ahead and maintain your payroll. And that $10,000, if your loan gets declined, does not need to be paid back. Huge opportunity for small businesses to stay afloat, right? Again, Faizan, I'm not talking about how you apply. I think Faizan and Brother Irfan spoke about that in great detail. I'm just talking about the laws and how it impacts your business from an accounting and tax perspective. The next slide, please. That's all the loans, right? If you are an individual, as we all know, if you withdraw from your 401k or an IRA or any other type of retirement account before the age 59 and a half, you have to pay a 10% penalty when you file your tax returns plus the taxes, right? Given this coronavirus, you can withdraw up to $100,000 from your 401k or retirement plan without the penalty, as long as it's what we call, or the Act calls, the coronavirus related distribution, right? So if you've been, unfortunately, received the virus personally, or you have a family member that's been affected by the virus, or you're having laid off or any sorts of issues related to that, you can withdraw from your 401k. You still have to pay the taxes on it, just not the 10% penalty, right? And also for those of us that are required to have a required minimum distribution from our IRAs and 401ks on an annual basis. This particular year, that's been waived. So if every year, once you're of the age of retirement, you're required to go ahead and have a required minimum distribution. This particular act, the CARES Act, waives it for just the calendar year 2020. The next slide, please. Going back to employers. If you've used up the Families First Act to pay your employees the first 2 weeks and then the additional 2 weeks, and you continue to pay your employees, then the government will go ahead and give you additional credits up to 50% of the wages that you paid onto your first 100 employees up to $5,000. Basically, the credit applies to wages up to $10,000, and we go ahead and cut that by 50%. These are wages. So the Families First Act went into effect April 1st. So this you can apply if you've paid people before April 1st. You can use the employee retention credit to go ahead and get the credit on your wages. Next slide, please. Our congressman just spoke about the unemployment benefits being increased. So if you've been laid off or furloughed, because we're telling a lot of employers, some of them that are unfortunately in a hardship and they cannot pay their employees, they have to let go their employees. And those employees, when you apply for unemployment benefits, then you can go ahead and get additional benefits. First, let's talk about who is eligible for unemployment benefits. So if you've been laid off by your employer, you can collect unemployment. If your employer tells you, hey, look, temporarily, our offices are closed. We're a physician's office, a dentist office, and we cannot see any patients because of the stay-at-home order, so I cannot pay you. Then you're temporarily laid off or a furloughed worker. You can apply for unemployment benefits. Before, if you were self-employed or a 1099 contractor, or a lot of you are self-employed and you have your own S-corps, and you may not pay yourself or you're strictly 1099, you are not eligible to receive unemployment benefits. Now you are. All self-employed workers or people that are seeking part-time, or you cannot get to your place of business, you qualify for unemployment benefits, right? It also applies if you've been interacted with the virus and you quit your job. Normally, if you quit your job, you don't get unemployment benefits. In this instance, if you quit your job because you've been interacted with the virus, you can apply for unemployment benefits. Basically, you get your normal benefits. What the act does is not only does it increase who qualifies for the benefit, but it also increases the amount of benefits that you or your employees may receive. Basically, you get an additional 13 weeks, approximately 3 months of additional unemployment benefits. And on top of your normal benefits that you receive, you get an additional $600 per week because of unemployment benefits related to the CARES Act. The next slide, changes in operating losses. So this is a lot to deal going back to the businesses. Under the previous act, the job and TCGA, I don't even remember the full form of it, but it's basically the Jobs and Securities Act. Basically, operating losses of a businesses were disallowed for all carrybacks, right? Basically, what that means is if your business had a loss, you cannot carry it back to a previous year. Now, because of the CARES Act, losses from the previous year, 2018, 2019, and 2020 will be permitted to be carried back up to 5 years, and you can go ahead and use those losses in 2019 and 2020 to offset 100% of your income as opposed to 80% in the previous law. So again, we'll go at the example at the bottom. So let's say in 2015 and 2016, Company X broke even. In 2017, Company X had taxable income of $100,000 and they paid federal income tax of $35,000. Right? In 2018, they reported taxable income of $200,000 and they paid taxes of $42,000, right? In the previous law, if you had a loss in 2020, Shafiq Bhai, your screen keeps going in and out. Thank you. In 2020, if company X recognizes as a loss, in the previous law, you couldn't carry it back, you could only carry it forward. But now what you can go ahead and do, you can carry the $300,000 loss back to 2017 and recoup your $35,000 in taxes that you paid. And you can carry the remaining $200,000 loss to 2018 and recover, basically ask for a refund of all the taxes that you paid in 2017 and 2018 as a result of a loss in 2020. That's the changes to the CARES Act. Next slide, please. So basically, that concludes all of the changes. There's other changes that I'm not going over that are related to the CARES Act, but if you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box, and then we'll take the Q&As in the chat box or at the end. Again, as Shafiq Bhai mentioned, if you or you know someone that was unable to join this presentation, please have them register on the link that we shared in the chat so we can send out the entire PDF PowerPoint presentation afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Tabriz Ahmed, for that detailed presentation and information you shared. In the interest of time, we'll keep moving on to the next program, next item in the agenda. But just to let you all know, like, we are running a little bit behind with the timing. So in case if we don't get to read all the questions, we will be scheduling another event pretty soon based on the questions which you are raising, and then we will be answering all the questions. We will try to answer as much questions as possible in the next event. But I'll get going to the next item in the agenda, which is about insurance, interruption and loss of income. Adnan Shaukat, an insurance agent and a member of our chamber, he is going to talk about that. So Adnan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. So I'm an insurance agent basically in the Midwest region. I work with the states of Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So as we know, due to the coronavirus pandemic that has happened, a lot of operations were suspended, or there was an interruption in operation, going back and forth. Now, some of the business owners, they try to file a claim with their insurance companies to get loss of business income due to this. You might have seen on the policy that you are covered for suspension of operation and civil authority. While that is true and you would be covered in that situation, but there are specific clauses within the policy that might reject your claim. And the reason my presentation is not probably going to make you guys happy, but it's going to make you aware of some things, because I don't want you guys to go file a claim and then you find out you're not covered, and that is going to be used against you when you guys renew your policies. Right now, due to suspended operations in Illinois and a few other states, you would be covered. However, you would only be covered in a scenario if there was a special cause of loss. A special cause of loss could be a fire damage, wind and hail damage, or a burglary or something of that nature that happens that physically alters the characteristics of the building property or the business personal property, equipment, and inventory you guys use to run your operations. Because of this pandemic, it's a virus. It does not alter or change the physical characteristics of the property in any shape or form. Due to that, because you do not suffer physical damage, the claim would be declined right then and there. And even if the virus was covered, there's another clause in the loss of business income. You have to wait 3 days. And what some of these insurance companies are saying that, you know, on the surface, the virus might survive for a few days, but if you go in and clean it out the next day, then you can still be continuing operations. Hence, majority of your policy is a loss of income within 3 days. You can clean it out. You would not be covered in that scenario as well. Now, civil authority is covered, but the civil authority must also happen due to a specific cause of loss, which would be fire. The city comes in, shuts down, saying that, you know, you cannot come in because it's a hazard. And due to that, you know, you're losing income until the repairs are being done. That is loss of income that would be covered in that scenario as well. Another issue that came about with some of my clients, and they said that, for example, if somebody bought food from my restaurant, then the customer finds out he was later infected, you know, by coronavirus or something. Spoilage coverage is available on the policy due to bacteria, fungus, and virus. So the restaurant equipment, if it's contaminated, would be replaced. And equipment would be mostly, in policy term, your meat or perishable goods. However, if your customer is infected by it, he would not be covered, and you would not be covered either, because under the commercial general liability policy, the form CG 21320509, any communicable disease is excluded completely. So even when you guys who are restaurant owners or any other retail stores, when you guys are doing any sort of operations, just be aware of that if a customer comes in and says there's contamination, do file the general liability portion of it, because then we can see what the court says in the future, or if there's any act of Congress that can probably allow the insurance companies to force to cover that as well. But for any loss of income due to being shut down or suspended due to civil authority, that would not be covered. That's why you're having these grants and these loans that the government is basically bringing about to continue the operation. Now, the reason why this virus exclusion was done is due to 2009, when the Ebola and some of the other SARS epidemics happened in the Middle East. They did not have this exclusion on the policy, and they saw that in a month or two, the loss was about $400 billion. Now, in the US, these insurance companies, even though we have 1,600 different companies, their total balance surplus is only about $800 billion. So 2 months worth of losses of income basically is going to make these companies bankrupt in a sense. Hence, right after the Middle East, SARS, and some of these issues that happened in Africa, like Ebola, in 2006, they enacted this exclusion onto all the policies. So before 2006, if you were grandfathered into some of those policies, you might still be covered. But seeing that how sometimes we switch policies if the premium goes high and everything, you might be forced onto the newer edition of the policy and not be grandfathered into the 2006 and previous policies. Now, there's a particular coverage for restaurant and some retails if you guys are doing any delivery. It's called a hired and unowned auto. What that does is, in case you or the owner or the employee is making any delivery to a customer or business, you get into an accident on the road, the regular general liability will not cover you. The hired and unowned auto is a coverage for $200, $300 extra annually that allows the liability to kick in on the road as well. So make sure you guys read your policies, and if you don't have this coverage, have the insurance agent add that on. And a lot of companies that did not do deliveries, now they're being forced to add this coverage so their customers stay in business. So now pretty much all the insurance companies would give you this coverage, which was not available with some of the carriers in the past. Now, workers' comp insurance. You would be covered, or I would say your employees would be covered, but then there are two conditions. One is occupational. So basically, an occupational hazard is a low threshold. Anybody can be covered in case, they get injured at work. But however, in the workers' comp, there's a language saying it has to be peculiar, meaning that, I'll give you an example, like a mine worker. Everybody knows in that occupation, getting black lungs or something is very peculiar in that industry. So if that employee was infected, the workers' comp would kick in and cover them. In the group, we have a lot of doctors as well. In the medical professional, you're pretty much almost guaranteed to have this coverage for your employees in case they are infected by the coronavirus or any other viruses that might come about, because in the medical profession, it is very peculiar to get this sort of disease in case, for example, you accidentally poked yourself with a needle and you guys ended up getting HIV or some sort of disease like that. So I would recommend not anybody to cancel any sort of policy at the moment, especially a workers' comp policy, and especially if you guys are a medical office. You guys do have an option to defer payments for 2 to 3 months until, this situation is sorted out. But one thing you have to be aware of, though, if, for example, you guys are paying $100 a month, and in 3 months you guys are suspending your policy, on the 4th month, when everything's back to normal, you would have to pay that $300 up front. If not, then they would cancel your policy. So that's very important to know. Due to this whole pandemic thing, and some people might not be able to afford their policy, you guys do have a few options. you guys can either increase your deductible to lower the premium, or you guys can reduce your inventory and building coverage down just to, stay in business. So those are two options that you guys do have to kind of defer the payments and lower the premium basically at the moment. And that is pretty much it. I didn't want to take too much time, but these are the basics at the moment.
Thank you so much, Brother Adnan. And I guess with that, I guess our presentations are over. There is a Q&A session, and we will try to keep it short. We initially planned for a 20-minute Q&A, but we will try to cut short it to 10 minutes. And if there are any questions which you have, please post it in the Zoom group, chat group. And Brother Abdullah Mitchell, you will be managing the Q&A, right?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes. Here, just so everybody to give some background as we approach this portion of the program. There's been a lot of questions and answers going back and forth, and I'm not going to address some of these points. What we want to do is give our presenters to share their viewpoints on that. The Chamber of Commerce, the panelists, to the extent their time permits, will review these questions and their responses also, to the extent they're not answered here this morning or this afternoon in our webinar. Inshallah, those information can be provided to you. But one, and I would present this to the panel, and it relates, let me just say, in terms of two questions: qualifying for the stimulus and qualification for some of these loans. Let me start with the stimulus portion. Does one's status, i.e., if one is a citizen, a resident, or more particularly, if someone only has a work visa or a student visa, do they qualify for the stimulus package benefit?
So, Brother Abdullah, I can go ahead and take that one.
Please.
If you have anyone over the age of 17, any children over the age of 17 that are dependents or in college, unfortunately, you do not get any additional money because you have children over the age of 17 that are still dependent on you. If I can also ask others that are unmuted, please unmute, or please mute yourself out if you're unmuted, because we have some background. Thank you.
And then, Reese, so what about individuals who, based on their status, they may be a resident, or they may be here on a work visa, or to the extent we have students that do work under a student visa. What is the status of them in terms of receiving any stimulus package?
Unfortunately, they haven't given us clear guidance. They just said anyone that files a tax returns and has a valid social security number.
So we'll have to wait and see how this rolls out by the federal government. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, I would pose once again another question to the panel. There was mention about, first, a number of questions regarding people's status. And I think there's a little confusion about what it means to be an employer, particularly if someone has a small business and they're the only person employed. How does this apply to them? The loan packages.
I could answer as far as the loan package is concerned, you are able to apply as a self-employed person. So even if you run a business and you are just yourself, even if you're running a business from your home, you are still able to apply for the economic injury disaster loan.
Okay, Paysan, one follow-up. There was a question in the chat about to the extent someone is a franchisee, the reference was like a 7-Eleven franchisee. Right. Are there restrictions that would bar them from participating in receiving a disaster loan?
No, if you're a franchisee, that is not a consideration. That doesn't matter. You have a business, you have income and expenses. That's all there is to know about. I think I saw the question. I think he was asking if he doesn't have inventory or something like that. So if that will be considered. So as I said in my presentation, even if you don't have any collateral, that cannot be a reason for a decline on the loan. A collateral helps, and if you can offer something, that would be great. But if you don't, then that cannot be a reason for a decline.
Before we go on to the next question, if you please check your mute status, because there's a lot of background noise coming. If you are not one of the presenters, and even if you are one of the presenters, please mute and then unmute when you are ready to talk, because the background noise is a little bit of irritating to other people. Thank you.
One second, sorry, Shafiq. If your cell phone number is 773-209-1743, please mute yourself. 773-209-1743. Thank you.
I just muted them. They're muted now. Thank you. Another line of questioning related to once again someone's status for receiving these unemployment benefits. How would that impact, once again, on a business that has only one employee, that being the owner? Would they be entitled to it? I guess that was the question.
A self-employed person can, I think the risk can take this, but yes, as far as the self-employed person can apply for unemployment.
Correct, and I did see that in the chat. If you're as owner of a S corporation, right now they haven't given us exact guidance, but it is my understanding that you can apply as well for the Paycheck Protection Loan.
There was another question: is under this Paycheck Protection Program, how is the owner's compensation treated under the loan amount and forgiveness?
Brother Abdullah, can you mute out that cell phone as well? Again, the 773-209 number.
Okay.
Thank you. It looks like they muted themselves. Thank you.
I see. I'm sorry. I don't know if the panel heard the question. Under the Paycheck Protection Program, how is the owner's compensation treated under the loan amount and forgiveness and loan forgiveness portion?
Again, right now, they haven't given us clear guidance. It is my understanding that it'll be applied the same way as the rest of the employees, but we'll have to wait to see what the law comes out, because that was just approved on Friday. My advice to all the small businesses or self-employed folks or people that have S Corps and you're the sole owner, you're paying yourself, apply for the loan. And apply for the loan with the intention that you're going to pay it back. If it's forgiven, great. If it's not, as long as you have that, hey, look, I'm taking a loan, and if I have to return it, I have to return it. If it gets forgiven, it's a bonus.
One thing, if I may interject at this particular point, John, because I received messages in the chat that some of my remarks at the beginning of this webinar were not clear. The objective of both the Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce and the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago is to provide timely information to keep you informed of the developments, particularly as COVID-19 is impacting our day-to-day lives. Some of the subject matter here this morning, this afternoon, is concerned about loans, just disaster loans. And there is concerns that have been raised to the extent that we may be promoting the taking of interest, riba. That is not the intention of any of the presenters or CIOGC. This is to be informative. And as one of the chat people are saying that they are now soliciting fatwa on this, and to the extent that this pandemic, how does this impact on that? That is not within the scope of this particular presentation, but inshallah, the information as we get it to us, we will share that with you. Our objective, once again, of both presenters is to help you, provide you with important information to guide you as you make critical decisions every day that affects your business and your day-to-day life. So with that, I will return to the questions, and does Faizan and Fabrice, let me ask this. To the extent that someone is a LLC company, how does that impact their status as a LLC company, impact taking advantage of any of the loans or the benefits that we've discussed this morning?
No, as far as the loans go, no, if you're an LLC, a C Corp, or a S Corp, that has no bearing on if you're going to be accepted or denied on the loan.
All right. All right. Now, one quick question. This is more specific, and I'm sorry. The question are these loans available for pharmacies? Are there any unique programs?
Sorry, brother Abdullah, we cannot hear you.
Oh, is that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Excuse me. A lot of the focus here, I know we're on a small business. We're talking about small businesses, but based on your understanding, and this is to any of the panelists, what programs, if any, would there be available to nonprofits? Particularly, I know some nonprofits they do have employees, and then to what extent some of these loans would be, they could qualify for some of these loans. If you could speak to that question, please.
Sure. So nonprofits can apply for the economic injury disaster loan. As I said in my presentation, they actually have a lower interest rate. They have a 1%, 2.75%, 1% less than for regular small businesses. The only distinction is that charitable institutions and religious organizations, they are not eligible to apply.
Okay, and that's a specific restriction.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Let me just see. Let me try to get one more question in. This question was, because benefits phase out starting at 150,000 to 180,000. So essentially, will this start decreasing $5 for every $100 income increments, starting at 150 and be phased out completely at 198,000? Did you hear the question? I mean, basically, the question goes to how will this the benefits be phased out based on individuals' income?
Again, on the stimulus, I'll go ahead and remind everyone is you don't have to do anything. The government will automatically calculate your stimulus check and send it to you via direct deposit or mail. The income limitations I'd given is if you make 75 as single or 150 as married, you get the full. Anything beyond that, this credit or the rebate starts getting phased out, and it's completely phased out at 99,000 and 198,000. If you have children, you can go beyond those limits.
All right. Let me kind of, because we've gone beyond the time, and I do want to share, answer one particular question that was raised, and that is the presentation has been indicated, and maybe not everybody joined at the same time. So this is really, once again, just a summary wrap up of that particular point. The presentation that you witnessed today, this, as Brother Shafiq indicated, it will be presented and shipped to you or emailed to you as a PDF PowerPoint presentation. It's important that you do register so that we can get this information to you. The second thing, as it was also indicated, we'd appreciate you registering, because we will use that as a pool of individuals that we can continue to share updates as they became available. One thing is clear from the presentation that we received today is that things are quite fluid. They're changing on a daily basis. In our conversations prior to this meeting, the panelists indicated that they've been involved in day-to-day meetings held by their professional associations, by the SBA and other agencies, to try to understand and be able to communicate to you, their potential clients, what this means, and to our community what this means. So it is important that you would stay in touch and link with this so these future developments can be effectively communicated to you. With that, I would also wrap up and ask Brother Irshad to give any closing remarks, and Brother Shafiq to give closing remarks on behalf of the two sponsoring agency. Brother Irshad?
No, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, no, thank you very much for everyone joining. We know what the community is going through, and I think this is a really good start. I want to thank Brother Shafiq for taking the lead on setting this up. This is the beginning. As I mentioned earlier, when Congressman Sean was on call, CIGC Task Force is planning to having multiple seminars regarding the financial sustainability for the organizations. And I know this is a small businesses, but every financial impact is an impact to the community. So stay tuned. That is in process. And once those information are available, we will be sharing that inshallah with everyone. And I really want to thank 100 plus people who joined today on the call. And thank you for joining. And I turn it over to Shafiq.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you all can see the screen, right? So a lot of you might be aware of Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce, which is a relatively new organization which we started. The first kickoff meeting, the kickoff meeting was actually last November, and alhamdulillah, it's growing. But we need the support from the community, right? And we are honored and we are privileged to team up with CAOGC to organize this event today, to give the community the updates. The primary goal is actually to make sure that, hey, in this, you are not alone. We are all in this together, and we will do whatever we can from our side to gather information, provide to you, and work together to make sure that our businesses stay healthy. And as you all know, like, we all are the backbone of our community, alhamdulillah. And we need to make sure our businesses thrive, and they are not informed properly or misinformed about what is happening. So with that, just want to let you know, like, we are doing our membership drives. So if you like to join our chamber, here's the email address. Our website is still under construction. It should be ready pretty soon. But if you like to get more information, you can send an email to info@ilmchamber.org. And our Facebook is actually facebook.com/IL Muslim Chamber. If you go there and like it, you will be updated about what is happening, what are the new events coming up, things like that. COGC, from my understanding, they are also planning new few events. I mean, as Brother Irshad and Brother Abdullah mentioned, things are changing every single day. So the COGC's leadership, we thank COGC leadership for staying on top of all that and keeping the community updated. And my understanding is there is an event coming up pretty soon for specifically focused on not-for-profits. So please go and like the Facebook page if you haven't already done that, so that you can get updates about what is happening and what the new events and things like that. With that, thank you so much. We will be organizing, we will be arranging another event pretty soon based upon the feedback which we receive. If you have any feedbacks, please be kind to us, because this is we are all getting used with the newer way of working. So this is definitely, there were glitches, but I hope you will be able to understand it and forgive the mistakes whatever happened. But at the same time, give us constructive criticism so that we can better this. So also send your feedback to info@ilmchamber.org if you have any suggestions on improving our future events, as well as any particular information to be included in our next event, next webinar. With that, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much. Stay safe, inshallah. Looking forward to see you at a future event, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.